Welcome back to pregame.tv. There's somebody in this chair. He looks vaguely familiar to me. Charlie Sheen? No. It's Scott Spreitzer. Where you been, my man?
Tell you what, man, that first preview radio, which you're a part of on Thursdays, it takes a lot of prep time, and it's been a lot of fun. We do it daily, obviously. 10 a.m. Pacific time, and the archives versions at pregame.com. Charlie Sheen, you know, I just kept thinking, man, I've watched your videos with Ken Thompson. You guys do a great job. And somebody's got to come down here and play Charlie to your Alan, which you do really well, and I'm assuming you mean to.
Nice. Okay.
Sorry about that.
All right. Spritzing.
Long story.
Yeah, long story. Tune in sometime down at Twin Peaks on the Strip and we'll explain.
I know what you're talking about.
All right, we're going to take a look at a couple season win totals, NFL, and we've, you know, all summer long, the guys that have been putting suits on in the 100-degree weather, you know, Charlie, you know, we've been doing that. So now it's your turn to come in and do a few season win totals, and you want to talk about, we're going to talk about the Philadelphia Eagles, and we're going to talk about the St. Louis Rams. Let's get it started with the Philadelphia Eagles, and this is a very intriguing team. Obviously, you know, new coach Chip Kelly comes in, brings in that Oregon mindset where we're just going to be, you know, up and down the field, crazy. And yep. You know, and they've done it so far, you know, with the, you know, the offense and a number of plays they're running in preseason. And after the first preseason game, I actually mentioned it on the radio show. Michael Vick said, we've only shown about a third of the playbook so far. And that can be sometimes a good thing and sometimes a bad thing. What's your take here on the Philadelphia Eagles 2013 edition?
Yeah, and I remember when you said that, you talked about Vic saying that we've yet to unveil the full load of this offense. Something that somebody should have said to Michael Vick at that time was probably, and you haven't seen anything but a base set defense. They have a game plan for anything you've done. And so when I look at what they're going to try to do, first of all, by the way, they're about plus 460 to win their division. And right now the over-under about 7.5 over at the LVH. The under, by the way, is about a minus $1.20. You bring up what they're going to try to do on the offensive side of the football. They've talked about running a dozen or 15 plays more than average in the NFL in their regular season football games. And it's kind of a double-edged sword because maybe it works from time to time, but if it's not working, here's the thing. If it works and you're kicking field goals, boy, you're putting your defense out there quite a bit, you know, after short timed possessions, maybe a lot more plays, but the possessions are shorter. You're not grinding out 10-play, 70-yard drives with this offense. What you're doing is you're looking to hit a couple of quick, big gains to move the chains. So I'm really interested in seeing how this defense is going to react if they do press and do their best to have 15 more plays on average than the rest of the NFL offenses. That defense could be gassed by midseason, especially if they're losing a couple more games that they feel they can win along the way. The disappointment starts to creep in, and things get tougher on that stamina on the defensive side of the football. So there's a couple of problems that's created. And I heard Chip Kelly the other day, and by the way, we're shooting this before Week 3 games are played. Week 3 games start the day after we shoot this video. But when I heard Chip Kelly say, well, Michael Vick, boy, he's learning this offense better than expected. What's he going to say, guys? Maybe he's telling the truth, but he's got Michael Vick, and after that he's got Nick Foles, doesn't really fit this offense, and Matt Barkley. Are you kidding me? I'm not an anti-Matt Barkley guy, but I thought they wasted that pick when they got him in the draft. It doesn't fit what they're going to try to do, Marco.
It because it's not anything similar to what they ran at USC. This
Absolutely.
Is totally opposite.
Different style of quarterback. And the thing is if it's run well, if this offense is run well, man, then that running back tandem that Philadelphia has, led by LaShawn McCoy, oh my gosh, they could have career years, there's no doubt about it. I just don't think they're going to get to where they want this offense to be, at least not this season. And that's one of the caveats I have with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Before we get to the defense, I just want to add something into the offense. One of the big problems last year for the Eagles, obviously, was all of the turnovers that they had. Now going to a faster-paced offense and the quarterback being more of an integral part of this, with Vic, moving around and everything, and he was one of the biggest culprits with the turnovers last year. Does that increase the chances of the turnovers?
Boy, the more he runs with the football, the more he handles it, the more chances you have for fumbles, bad decisions. as much as I like Michael Vick as an athlete, and you know, I just can't get over that thought of this guy turning the ball over when he decides to run with the football when other things break down. And he's going to have to be a real quick thinker in this offense. And I'm not saying he's not. He can read defense as well as anybody in the league. But I worry a little bit that the turnovers could increase with the things that he has to read pre-snap and then decisions he has to make when defenses start adjusting to this offense they're going to run. So, yeah, I mean, to answer your question, I would think it tends to maybe create more problems with turnovers than it did last season when it was already pretty bad.
All right, so now let's move over to the defense. We've talked about the speed, which, you know, and this is something that I talked about numerous times last year on the radio show with the Baltimore Ravens. I thought it was a mistake them going to the hurry-up offense because you were putting a defense that was getting a little old last year out there for more plays. Anytime you put a defense on the field for more plays, you're exposing them for more chances to get beat.
Sure.
And that's one thing that you're going to see with this. And if this offense does turn the ball over, like we just talked about, now you're creating shorter fields, you know, for the defense to have to defend. What do you make of the defense going into this?
Well, one of the things that they're going to do is they're going to switch from a 43 to a 34. A couple of new guys coming in, obviously, the new staff, coaching staff. They're going to switch to a 3-4. And the pass defense, the secondary can't get any worse than it was last year. And they lost a bunch of those guys. They're all gone, and they bring in like Fletcher, Chung, Phillips, Kerry Williams. These guys are going to see a lot of work in the secondary this year for Philadelphia in this 34 defense. I don't have a problem with their nose tackle situation up front. And they go out and they get a guy like Isaac Sopoaga, who used to play a 34 until Harbaugh out in Frisco, San Francisco. I always get in trouble when I say Frisco by people who live there, and I love the city. But the bottom line is that they go out.
They don't like
there
that
you go.
either.
Yeah, exactly. But Sopoaga played for the Niners, but Harbaugh started to eliminate as much 34 as they used to play, so he wasn't as badly needed. And so now he's going to be anchoring this 34. The problem is you got guys like Trent Cole, Fletcher Cox, who are still there and are going to be occupying starting positions at a 34, and they're built for 43. You look at a guy like Trent Cole. Here's a guy who's played defensive end. Here's a guy who's been in a three-point set to start a play for his entire career, who now has to all of a sudden switch his mental thinking, how he approaches the game defensively. Same goes for Cox. Here's a guy who goes from a 43 defensive tackle to a 34 defensive end. So there's a lot of adjustments that have to be made, and their athleticism will be on display if they're really good athletes or not in this 34 defense. So a lot of situations have to change on the defensive side of the football. Again, the secondary can't be any worse than it was last year. A lot of new faces. I have no problem with the changes they made in the secondary. I just don't know. Again, it's going to take a season, I think, for this 34 to gel and to maybe get a couple of the right guys in there to handle the change to the 34. When I look at the schedule, Marco, a 2-1 start, not out of the question. I'll be slightly surprised because I've got them earmarked to lose to Kansas City in Game 3, and that would make them 1-2. I think they're going to win one of the 3 games.
That's going to be a big emotional game when Reed comes into Philadelphia.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be at Philly, so I'm not going to be shocked if they beat Kansas City. But right now, before the season begins, I've counted it as a loss. But even if they go 2-1,
I know where you're going.
3-game road stretch in a row: Denver, Giants, Tampa Bay, and then the schedule doesn't get a whole lot easier after that. This season could be a better version of the Eagles than last year with all the changes that are being made, but it's so many changes. I don't know if they have the right parts on defense, as I mentioned, and I think it's going to take some time on offense. They might have to pare down what they're doing on offense rather than bringing in that 3,000-pound playbook that Vic was talking about a couple of weeks ago. I really think this is a 6-10 team. And again, they might be better than last year's version, but 6-10 is where I got them earmarked.
Yeah, you look in, to elaborate on what you said with the schedule, 4 of their first 6 games of the season are on the road.
Those 3 back-to-back-to-back. Yeah.
And then you said then they come home. Well, the 2 games they come home are both division games,
right.
Dallas and the Giants. And with that kind of start, you know, that 5-game stretch there, they could go 1-4 in that stretch very easily. And then you know what happens if a season can just unravel from there.
And especially if the defense is worn out from 80 to 85 offensive plays being run so quickly, or turnovers being made, and the time of possession being so weighted towards the opponent, that defense is going to get frustrated.
I have one last question for you on the Eagles before we make your pick official. Not on the season win total, but do you think that there's going to be some value on betting the overs in these Eagle games at the start of the season? Because it's going to take a little bit of time, whether this is a gimmick offense or not, people have to see it to know how to defend it. So they're going to have, it's almost like we talk about a pitcher in baseball. When you haven't seen that pitcher before, he's got the advantage over the hitters. This offense in, the first couple games until people figure a way to defend it, do you think there's an advantage there that they can do some scoring? And then as bad as the defense is, and if you're scoring quicker, you're putting the other team's offense is going to obviously get more offensive plays by default. Do you think that's going to have a tendency to the overs, or do you think Vegas is going to be way out in front of that and have these overs pumped up at the beginning of the
solid
season?
Logical thinking. I mean, definitely. And if I'm a sportsbook odds maker, I'm sitting there right now thinking I might have to adjust 1.5 or 2 to start the season. The big thing is
that'll be my question for Jay the next time on the show.
Jay Corda gave the OVH. But one of the things that we can hammer out, especially after we get these Week 3 results, and hopefully we'll see the Philly offense play into the second half, and hopefully the opponent will game plan a little bit more for what they think they might be seeing out of Philly. We can kind of make our minds up a little bit more on how to handle those first couple of games of the season. But again, I like the fact that Philly got rid of that junky secondary and brought in some new blood, but still it's not problem resolved. And I think Cole and Cox could struggle a little bit, switch them from that 43 to 34, so you might be right. Yeah.
You know what? We've talked about it enough. Let's make this one official with your free pick.
I think you already know where I'm going with this one. My free pick, and I'm making it official, is the Philadelphia Eagles under the total of 7.5. Juice is -120 on the under, and I think it's well worth laying -120, 7.5. That's over at the LVH. Jay Cornegay has that lineup as of a couple of days ago, and that's where I'm going with this game. It's one of my favorite over-under plays of the entire season. And by the way, if you've missed any of our conference or divisional previews in college football or the NFL on the First Preview Radio Show, be sure to go to where you're there right now, pregame.com, the homepage, check out the archives. And a few of us have already given out some over-under season win totals. But one of my top 3 of the entire regular season is this one under the total, the Philadelphia Eagles.
All right, great stuff, Scott. We're going to just go right into your next play because you've got another free pick for us. We're going to look at the St. Louis Rams. And this is a team that, a lot of people are, high because they showed some signs of life last year.
Right.
And I know there's some people on the other side of the coin here. What do you make out of last year's Rams team? Jeff Fisher, he's a coach a lot of people like, and, he brings that hard-nosed style. And everybody looks at the 2 signature games last year, I think, for the Rams were the 2 games against San Francisco. That's what everybody draws their conclusion to. What's your take on 2013 St. Louis Rams?
I'm a Jeff Fisher fan, first of all. He brings that, like you just said, a hard-nosed, maybe an old-school type of attitude to the sideline and to his team, but he makes teams better. He takes a team that's down and he can make them better. There's no doubt about it. And when I think Jeff Fisher, I think Smash Mouth football. And when I think Smash Mouth football, I think Smash Mouth sports. Free plug. But anyway,
guy.
But I'll tell you what. Here's
no spot knockers.
No spot knockers. You know what? We're going to save that for week 1, I think. But thanks for reminding me. But the Rams, they opened 8-1 to win this division, the NFC West at LVH. They're now 15-2 to win the division. Season win total 7.5. Here's the thing: the juice has gone from under 7.5. -140 at LVH to over 7.5 -120. A little bit of a change there, and the money's come in on the Rams over, but I have to disagree a little bit. Now, I'm not as big on this as I was on the Eagles, but again, I look at what they did last year, and we talked about it on Tuesday's radio show with Brian and Steve. Yeah, they were 4-1-1 straight up in the division last year, and they were 6-0 against the spread. They had at least 2 games that were total good fortune. I mean, just great luck on the side of the Rams. Just take away those 2 wins, and all of a sudden they are 2-3-1. Take away a lucky tie in one of those games, and all of a sudden they're 2-4 within that division, and that record starts to look a little bit less, polished or whatever you want to call it within the division. So I think you have to factor in the luck factor from last year, and I don't know if it's going to be there again this season. They were middle of the pack on both offense and defense last year, and here they got to play the Seahawks again twice. They got to play the Niners again twice. They could lose all 4 of those football games. Schedule's a little tough, and when I looked at their schedule, I was thinking, this team could play well and still after 7 games be 2-5 straight up this year. And then on October 20th in Game 8, they've got to play at Carolina against a Panthers squad that I believe is going to find a little bit more success than they did last year. That could be the make or break game, not only on this play that I'm about to give out, but also on the Rams season. because if they drop to 2-6, there's going to be a lot of frustrated St. Louis Rams players. It's going to mean things aren't quite going their way, even if they play well against the schedule they're going to face. So here's this over-under win total at 7.5. I think there's a good chance they're going to be 2-6 through their first 8 games, Mark.
Well, this is what I'm looking at here, and I got to agree with you here. For this team to get to 500 is going to be a stretch. I look at their 8 road games, and this may be the toughest 8 road games of anybody. They got Atlanta, Dallas, Houston, Carolina, Indianapolis, San Francisco, Arizona, and Seattle. And the other part of it is they have 3 sets of back-to-back road games.
It's a terrible schedule.
Where there's no margin for error. And they could be, let's say they get 1 or 2 on the road, and that's a stretch.
Right.
You got to be you got to be perfect at home almost to get to where you need to be. In their home games, you're going to face San Francisco, you're going to face Seattle in your division. I don't know. And they've got New Orleans and Tampa Bay at home. Those are teams. I don't know where they come.
That's a very good shot. They're only 1-3 and playing halfway decent football in those 4 games.
Yeah.
And those teams, when you lose and you're playing decent football, you get frustrated, obviously. And that could add up and bother this team emotionally as they try to play out the rest of the season if they start 2-6. So you know where I'm going with this one, Marco. I agree with you. It's one of those situations when, in my notes, when I was getting ready to do that NFC West preview the other day on the radio show, I'm going, man, this team needs everything and then some to go right and get good fortune on top of it and not suffer any key injuries to go 8-8.
Yeah.
Just to go 8-8 because of that nasty, tough schedule, and the over-under is 7.5. So you know where I'm going. I think this team is not a bad team that finishes 6-10.
One last thing before we make it official. How much do you think Steven Jackson's going to be missed? I know he's at the tail end of the career, but he still was so productive.
So dependable. And that's the thing is they're going to miss his carries. I really do. I think so. I mean, he's going to move on, and they are going to. That's going to be a hole in the backfield that you could rely on if you're Bradford at quarterback. And also, by the way, and I know he doesn't always get a lot of positive slaps on the back for this. There's plenty of times last year, the year before, when he is healthy, by the way, that he does make nice pickup blocks. And they're going to miss that. He knows the offense. And I do think that on a scale of 1 to 10, I think he's going to be missed 6.5 or 7, which for my ratings is pretty. I'm not saying value against the number, but I'm saying they're going to miss him on a scale of 1 to 10. 6.5 is pretty big on my scale when it comes to how much teams are going to miss a key player from the season before.
Well, you know what? We talked about it. Let's make it official.
All right, thanks, Alan. I'm going to play I'm going to play the under 7.5, the Rams over at the LVH. If you happen to be in town, if you're coming to town for that seminar on Friday night, by the way, and if you're watching after, well, you can shop around. But the bottom line is you can right now get plus $1.10 under 7.5. I gave out a 3-star play on Philadelphia under. This one's a 1-star, a single-star play. I guess it's because I have so much faith in Jeff Fisher, but the more we talked about it, the more it almost got a little bit higher rated. But the Rams under 7.5 is my official play on the St. Louis Rams in 2013.
Well, I got to give you a stamp of approval on this one. I agree with you 100% on this one. And like I said, I look at that schedule, and there's just no margin for error this year from this team. I just don't see them making enough of a leap to get over the schedule that they got. So Scott says take under 7.5 with St. Louis, the earlier video, under 7.5 with the Philadelphia Eagles. That's it for Scott. Scott's going to be back in here shooting videos, cameo appearances whenever Charlie's in town.
Each week now that it's cooling off.
Yeah. Now that I've lost 10 pounds this summer with the, sweating it out here in the studio, you're going to come in nice and cool and, limo bring you in,
Oh, sure, I'll take it.
Yeah, great to be a star, Spritzy.
Oh, yeah, here we go.
So he's Scott Spreitzer and Marco D'Angelo. Hey, stay tuned all rest of the preseason leading up to opening day of both college and NFL, as we will have more season win totals and thoughts on, division winners and things of that nature. There's so many different ways to make money sports betting. We're here to provide it for you. So, hey, thanks for watching, Scott. Thanks for coming in. We'll see you guys soon.
Stuff.